The corn patch. As Chick walked back towards the coop, he thought about his conversation with Peck and Quinny. Tomorrow, Chick and his family would have to appear before the Council of Aunties. He was so certain that Peck would be able to help him, and he still might, but the outlook was not hopeful. Chick decided that he wasn't going to sit around and wait for the beak to drop. If he couldn't find someone else who knew the rules better than Auntie Hasidia, then Chick would have to find some way to prove his dad's innocence. Instead of going back to the coop, he headed towards the corn patch to see what he could find. He wasn't sure what he was looking for, but he thought he would know it when he found it. As Chick approached the corn patch, he could see there were definitely more guard roosters than when he was here last. The roosters patrolled the rows, walking past the hens that were weeding and checking the corn for harmful pests. As Chick made his way into the rows, he saw that some of the hens had chicks with them. Auntie Hasidia allowed hens with chicks to bring them to work as long as they made sure the chicks didn't damage the corn. Auntie Hasidia considered having the chicks in the corn as less of a job perk and more of as a job training for chicks. She felt it was never too early to start training coop chicks to work in the corn. The hens carefully pecked and scratched and plucked through the rows of corn, finding things to eat for them and their chicks. Occasionally they would pluck something and put it in their grass pouches to save for later. No one gave Chick so much as a second look. They assumed he was just another chick who accompanied his mother to work. Watching the others eat made Chick hungry. With all that had happened in the barn and with Quinny and Peck, he hadn't had time for breakfast. When he made it to his dad's section, he started to look around for something that could prove his dad's innocence. If he found something to eat in the process, that would be okay too. But everywhere Chick looked, the hens and the chicks had already been there and done a thorough job of getting everything that was legally edible. All Chick could find was a few ants scurrying about. In spite of being a cornetarian, Chick was tempted to eat a couple of them, but he didn't. Then he briefly considered plucking a cob of corn off the stalk, but he figured his family was in enough trouble over corn as it was. That and the fact that he couldn't reach the cobs was enough to keep him from trying. Chick continued to look as he was going down one row with his beak to the ground, intently looking. And then he bumped into the back of someone's leg. Chick looked up and saw a burly red rooster with angry yellow eyes and a big thick comb and a large warty wattle. "Hey, watch it, kid," he clucked angrily. Chick was so surprised he just stood there staring up at the rooster. The rooster, eyeing Chick, asked, "Hey, kid, where's your ma?" The rooster loomed over Chick, waiting for him to answer. Being able to think of one, Chick gave the universal sign that all children give when confronted by an annoyed adult. He shrugged. "Oh, great," clucked the rooster to himself. "Just what I need. Another lost chick. Those dumb clucks shouldn't be allowed to bring their kids to work if they ain't gonna watch 'em." The rooster then leaned down to Chick and clucked loudly and slowly as if Chick was too stupid to understand proper Chicklish. "Where is your ma? You can't be here without your ma." About the time Viona came around the end of a row of corn, "Albert," she squawked, "y'all best not be mixin' me wee Chick here." Obert the rooster balked back. "Viona Spudfoot, I should have known, you daft old hen. Why, you're always breaking the rules and bringing somebody else's chick in the corn. I done told you that the rules there can be no chick in the corn without his ma." Viona clucked dismissively. "Obert, you a thick-combed old fool. You know full well them rules don't say nothing about such a thing. They say all chicks in a corn must be accompanied by a hen. It says nothing about that the hen being the chick's ma or not." Obert squawked. "I know that, but hen means ma. You can't be bending the rules to suit yourself." "'Tain't bending no rules," clucked Viona. "Yeah, you are," balked Obert. "You're bending the rules, and I can't allow it no more. I don't want to get crossways with Auntie Acedia. She done sacked Walter, and I don't want to be next. I got me 3 hens and a passel of chicks to think about." "Obert, you darn old mudhead, if you're going to be invoking Walter's name, then be merciful, 'cause this here is Walter's chick." "Chick? What?" squawked Obert in disbelief. "This here chick is Walter's chick?" Viona proudly clucked. "None other. So y'all best be showing some respect." Obert looked at Chick and said, "Well, I'm very sorry for what's happened to your pa. If I had known you was Walter's chick, I wouldn't have been so severe." Then Obert looked at Viona and clucked firmly. "None the less, rules are rules, Viona. Even though this here chick is Walter's chick, he still shouldn't be here 'cause his ma don't work in the corn and his pa's done been sacked." "Walter's not been sacked," balked Viona. "He's just been laid off." "Well, that's the same thing," said Obert. "If Auntie Acedia wants you gone, you're gone." Viona removed her pouch from her shoulder and dropped it on the ground. Then, in spite of being a hen, she flared out her neck feathers in a menacing, rooster-like challenge and said, "Now you listen to me, Obert Mudfuddle. I knows what them rules say, and I knows me rights, and I knows is Chick's rights. Makes no never mind who his Chick's ma and pa be. He's my charge, and I'm looking after him just like any other chick I brings with me. Not all hens are as fortunate as me to have a job and a means to eat. They needs help feeding their babies, and I aims to help 'em. As for the rule you been quoting, I tells you again, it says plain and clear that all chicks in the corn must be accompanied by a hen. I'm a hen, and he's a chick. He's with me, and that's the end of it. No argument." When Viona said that last bit, she kicked at Obert, causing him to jump. Obert got red around the beak and squawked, "Now you see here, Viona Spudfoot, There's no need to take that tone. I'm just trying to do my job. You know how Auntie City has been lately squawking about a corn shortage and working us down to our beaks and claws. With neck feathers flared wider, Vione stretched her head out in an even more disturbing and aggressive rooster-like stance. "And do your job," she barked menacingly, "and let me worry about old Auntie Acidia." Desperately hoping to avoid a fight, Obert clicked his beak and said, "All right, Viona. You say this chick is with you, then fine. But if Auntie Acidia gets her beak out of joint about it, then it's on you." Vione balked. "I ain't tore up or no Auntie Acidia. I know me rights, and I know his chick's rights. Rights even a whole high and mighty herself has to respect." She then kicked at Obert again, burying her claws, causing him to jump back so quickly he fell. Pressing her advantage, Viona kicked at the guard rooster several times, but just missing him. Viona didn't want to hurt him. She just wanted to drive home a point. Then she barked so loud she almost sounded like a rooster. "Now get, 'fore I make you rue the day you was ever hatched." Obert scrambled back to his feet, squawking, all right, Viona, I'm going, but only 'cause I got garden duties to tend to. You best watch yourself." "Off what?" barked Viona loudly. "Oh, you just watch yourself, that's all," squawked Obert as he hastily scrambled away. And when he had gone, Viona stood up and smoothed her ruffled feathers. She then picked up her pouch and, chuckle-clucking, said, "Darn old mudhead tain't got enough sense to keep his head down in the rain." Then she turned to Chick and asked, "Well, what brings you to this neck of the homestead, young Roo?" "Not sure," said Chick. "I'm just..." His words trailed off. Viona gave him a sympathetic nod and kindly clucked. "I know you worried about your pa and you come here looking for answers." Chick looked at his feet and shrugged. "I understand," said Viona. "The gals and me don't like what's happening. Walter's a real good Roo, a bit odd, but good." "My dad's not odd," peeped Chick angrily, and as quickly as he flared up, his anger boiled off, and Chick hung his head sadly, muttering, He's just different, that's all." Viona put her wing around Chick and clucked affectionately, "I means no harm, child. I reckon different is just a good kind of odd. The truth be told, if in more roos 'twas like old Walter, we'd all be a sight better off, and I don't believe for a second Walter stole no corn." Chick looked at her, and holding back his tears, he said, "You don't?" "No," said Viona. "What corn he had was his by rights. Your old pa never done a questionable act in his whole life, which is more'n I can say about some folks." Viona gave Chick a sly wink that seemed to say she wasn't above committing a questionable act herself. "Y'all know what amazes me about your pa?" she asked. Chick shook his head. "'Tis how he likes all folks," said Viona, and then she shook her head, chuckle-clucked. "Yeah, I never heard Walter cuss nobody, not even that old hen hag Hasidia, and even though she done him dirt." "You mean by accusing him of stealing corn?" asked Chick. "Oh, not just that," said Viona, "but not paying him. You mean Dad was supposed to get paid? Asked Chick. He was, said Viola firmly. He was supposed to get a corn allowance just like the rest of us. But old Aunt Acidia decided like all new hires like your pa had to prove itself first. She called it probation. Tain't ever heard a word like that afore. If you just ask me, I say it's just a fancy word for cheating a hard working Roo like your pa out of his corn. Were you on probation when you started working here? Asked Chick. Oh no, replied Viola earnestly. I was a working here long before old Hallow become the corn matriarch, so no probation for me. I was way past proving meself. Did Dad ever prove himself? Asked Chick. Not that he needed to, said Viola, but as far as I was concerned, he sure did. Walter proved himself 100 times over, but still that old hen hag wouldn't pay him. Why? Corn cuts, said Viola. The old corn hag said 'tweren't enough corn to pay everybody. Your old pa was good-natured about it, but he agreed to work for what loose corn he could find on the ground and any bugs or seed he could find. Well, that's not fair, peeped Chick. No, it ain't, said Viola. But old Walter is gooder'n nary any Roo I'd knowed. He never fussed nor cussed about it. He just went on working hard and taking old Aunt Acidia at her word. He figured if there 'tweren't enough corn, he'd just do his part and help. Well, that sounds like Dad, said Chick. He sat there for a minute thinking, and then he asked, Viola, do you think there's a corn shortage? Well, don't rightly know, said Viola. There seem to be plenty of corn these days, but the cobs tain't as big as they used to be. What do you mean? Viola sighed and said, Well, back when I was a wee slip of a pullet, I just started working in the corn patch, and in them days it seemed the cobs were pert near as long as I was tall. Of course, I was a good bit smaller in them days, so them cobs probably just seemed bigger. Viola then chuckle-clucked and said, I used to turn a few Roo heads in them days, too. But anyways, the cobs this year do seem a mite smaller than the ones from last year and the year before that. Chick asked again, but do you think there's a corn shortage? Well, I don't really think so. There's plenty of cobs, they just seem smaller. But old hen hag is acting like they is, especially here lately. She's been carrying on working us right down to her beaks and claws, all 'cause of this so-called corn shortage nonsense. It wouldn't be so bad if she hadn't cut her corn allowance. She cuts your corn allowance? Oh, not just mine, but everybody's. I reckon she won't be satisfied till we gets no corn and just be working for just what bugs and cobworms we finds in the rows. And she'll probably find a way to take away that. Well, I bet isn't a corn shortage, peeped Chick. That may be, said Viola, but we got no way to prove it. Old Hallow keeps all the corn harvested locked up in the corn crib by the cabin. And they's a couple of mid-hens guarding it. Not roosters, said Chick. I thought mid-hens were supposed to help the nobles protect their chicks, and roosters got the guard duty. Well, supposed to, said Viola, but some say that old Aunt Acidia don't trust no roos, which is kind of funny, 'cause she really acts like one. The way she struts around being all full of herself. Why, I wouldn't be at all surprised to hear her crow one day. Chick thought what Viola said was funny, considering how he saw the way she challenged Obert. She don't even trust Bont, said Viola, and he's the official Galliard scratcher. Never cared for him myself, always acting so high and mighty. Being such a runt, he's way too big for his tail feathers. But I reckon if old Hen Hag don't trust him, he can't be all bad. Viola then cocked her head to one side and reached up her foot to vigorously scratch the side of her beak. And she fluffed out her feathers and said, "All this talk about corn is making me hungry. How about it, Chick?" Chick was indeed hungry, but he said nothing, and then his stomach growled. Viola chuckled and said, "I guess I take that as a yes." She then looked up and down the rows to see if anyone was around. There was a hen with her chicks at the far end row. Viola waited until they were out of sight, and then she went to the nearest corn stalk and gave it a swift kick, causing a cob of corn to fall off the stalk. Viola picked it up and examined it, and then, with her clawed feet, in a series of seemingly well-practiced moves, Viola quickly shucked it and got all the corn kernels off of it, and quickly hid the corn in her pouch. Viola then sat down next to Chick and handed him a generous share of kernels. Then, clucking heartily, she said, "Here you go, boy, eat up." Chick just stared at the kernels. He was impressed with how quickly Viola did all that. "Well," balked Viola, "what's wrong?" Chick nervously peeped, "But isn't this, What?" balked Viola, cutting him off. "Illegal corn harvesting? Course not. I found this corn on the ground fair and square." "But you picked it." "Oh, did I, Nell?" said Viola, with a look so innocent that she could have gave Quinny lessons on facial expressions of blamelessness. "Did you actually seize me pluck it?" she asked. "No, but you kicked the stalk and made it fall." "'Tain't no nary mind about that," said Viola. "His corn was found on the ground, and by rights it's mine. Em's the rules. I don't make 'em up. I jest go along with 'em." Then she leaned down to Chick and surreptitiously whispered, "Or finds a way around 'em." Chick realized that he was indeed in the presence of someone who was clever like him, maybe even more so. Still, he was nervous about eating anything. Chick was afraid that the way his luck had been going, just as soon as he took one peck, Auntie Acidia would come bursting through the corn ready to charge him with illegal corn harvesting. "Go on, boy," urged Viola. "Eat." Chick took a couple of pecks and said, "Well, if it's all the same to you, Miss Viola, I think I'd just save it for later." "Ah, suit yourself," said Viola. As she quickly pecked up her share, she then reached into her pouch and took out a smaller pouch, just like the one she was carrying, except this one was definitely Chick size. "Y'all can put 'em in this," she said, handing it to Chick. "Well, thank you, Miss Viola," said Chick as he put the kernels into the smaller pouch. "I promise to get this back to you as soon as I can." "Oh, don't bother with that," said Viola. "You can keep it. I makes 'em for the other wee chicks when I chick sets. I gives 'em to the pullets and the cockerels alike. Sometimes the cockerels fuss about it being a gal thing, but I tells 'em that ain't so. I tells 'em you're never too young or too cockerel to help your ma bringing home some supper." Chick didn't care about that, but he liked having a pouch because his dad had one. Viola warned him, "But don't let old Obert catch you taking them kernels out of the corn patch. He says it's agin the rules, but we know different." Viola gave Chick a wink and a nudge. "Was Obert the one who accused my dad?" asked Chick. Well, Viola thought for a minute and said, "No, don't rightly know. I don't think not. Obert may be a mud hen, but he's still a cooperoo, and I'd nae figure him to be a tattler. Still, you never know. If he did peep Chick, I'll make him pay." "Don't doubt that you would," clucked Viola. Chick yeeped furiously. "I will! I will! I'll give him such a plucking he won't soon forget." "Or a pecking on his kneecaps he won't soon forget," chuckled Cluck Viola. Then, getting a little serious, Viola said, "Try not to be too ill about old Obert. Even if he did tattle on your paw, more'n likely it was his fear of Aunt Acidia that made him do it. Lots of folks are scared of her. Fear can even make a good chicken do bad things. I'd hate to think of what it could do to somebody like poor old Obert. He ain't got enough grit in his craw to stand up to the likes of old Aunt Acidia." "But you're not afraid of her," said Chick. "Oh, indeed I is," replied Viola earnestly. "Anybody's that got the sense that the Holy Mother gave a doodlebug is scared of old hen hag. But just 'cause I'm willing to stand up for myself, mean I ain't scared. If old hen hag ever comes for me, I won't go quietly. I'll balk and peck and claw and squawk to fit to beat the dark roo hisself, but I still be scared. Now I best say no more, 'cause you speak evil's name and she'll be a-comin'." Viola then fluffed out her feathers as if she was shaking off a bad feeling. "I gotta get back to work, and you young roo best skedaddle home. Your ma'll be looking for you, and don't worry none about scouring the corn patch with me and the gals. We'll keep a eye open for anything to help your pa, and if we find something, I'll sure let you know." He knew Viola was right. He had been away from the coop longer than he intended. June was probably wondering about him. Chick gave Viola a hug and then said, I appreciate all you're doing to help." Viola got red around the beak and clucked. "Oh, 'tain't nothing. Besides, old Walter would have done the same for me if I was in his feathers. Now get so's your ma don't worry none." Chick waved goodbye and scampered off. Heeding Viola's words, he kept a sharp eye out for Obert. Unfortunately, Chick was not quite out of the corn patch when he saw Obert standing in the middle of the row, casually nibbling on a cob of corn. Chick thought if he looked as if nothing was wrong, he could just slip past him. As he slowly walked up, Obert tossed the cob aside and gave Chick a friendly nod. Hoping he was in the clear, Chick was almost past Obert when the rooster stepped in front of him. "Whoa there, young feller," clucked Obert. "Where are you off to in such a hurry?" "I gotta get home," peeped Chick. "Do you now?" said Obert casually. "Well, why ain't Viola taking you home?" "She's gotta work and I gotta go," said Chick as quickly as he tried to dart past Obert. "Hold on," said Obert, blocking him again. "Not so fast. I got me a few questions to ask, like, what you got in that bag?" "What, this?" meeped Chick. Chick glanced at the pouch. "Oh, just some grass seed and Miss Viola gave to me." "Oh, did she now?" clucked Obert. Chick, affecting the most innocent look he could, eagerly peeped. "Yes, sir. She said I could take some of the bugs and wild seed I found in the corn patch home to my mom." "Is that a fact?" "Yes, sir, she sure did. She told me you're never too young to help your mom." Obert clicked his beak and said, "Y'all ma needs a lot of help, does she?" "Oh, yes, sir," peeped Chick earnestly. She needs all the help I can give her." "I reckon she does," clucked Obert. He leaned down until his face was level with Chick, and then with a smirk he added, "What with all this trouble your pa's in, I suspect she needs a lot of help. Do you think she'd like me to stop by and help her?" Chick was not sure what Obert meant by that, but he didn't like the way it sounded. He was starting to get angry. "Can I go now?" asked Chick as his voice quavered a bit. "Sure you can go," said Obert, "right after I have a look in your bag." "My bag?" peeped Chick. Obert nodded and echoed, "Your bag." Then he stood up and, speaking with a sense of superiority that comes from believing your victim is helpless, he added, "'Cause unlike some hens, I ain't persuaded by feigned looks of innocence. The kernel doesn't fall too far from the cob, if you take my meaning." Getting red around the beak from anger, Chick said, "I'm sure I don't." Obert leaned down and stuck his face in front of Chick and said, "Your pa's a thief, and I expect you're a thief as well. So how's about handing that bag over and let me see what we both know is in there?" That did it. Chick snapped like a spring wound too tight. He jumped up to peck Obert between the eyes, but his aim was a little off, and he got him in his left eye. Obert squawked loudly as he fell backwards onto the ground. Chick then took off like a shot. Obert staggered to his feet and took off after him. An advantage that Chick had over the guard rooster, in addition to being lighter and faster, was that he was small enough to run across the rows of corn and go in between the stalks without any trouble. Obert, on the other hand, could not. Chick easily left the guard rooster behind in a blue cloud of his own balking and squawking and cussing. By the time Obert got through the corn, Chick was nowhere to be seen. Squawking in frustration, Obert turned and stomped back to the corn patch. Meanwhile, Chick just kept on running. He finally stopped and looked back, and he didn't see anyone, but even though he was out of the corn, Chick felt he wasn't out of the woods. He assumed that Obert would have every guard rooster in the homestead looking at him, and if they caught him with the corn, they would say he stole it. He needed some place to hide. Chick ran towards the stone wall and considered the possibility of running for the deep brush. But when he got there, the gate was shut. The gate was an old double gate made of solid wood with a large crossbeam that kept it shut. The gate was seldom opened because the beam was so heavy. It took at least 10 big roosters or 4 mid-hens to lift it. There was no way the Chick could lift it, and he wasn't big enough to fly over the wall. Chick looked up and saw a couple of guard roosters stationed on top of the wall. He quickly flattened himself against the wall, hoping they didn't see him. He assumed that by now he was a wanted Chick for stealing corn and assaulting a guard rooster. With his back against the wall, Chick cast an anxious look up. He couldn't see the guard roosters, which hopefully meant they couldn't see him. Chick wondered what he should do now. He thought maybe he should find another way to make for the deep brush. Then he quickly discarded that idea because he remembered what Peck had said about June being held responsible for things that he or Walter did. And he thought if that was true, June would be even in more trouble because he pecked the guard rooster in the eye. Chick didn't know what to do. He decided he needed to find a place to hide and try to think this through. What Chick did not know was that no one was really looking for him. When Obert reported the incident to his fellow roosters, they all had a great laugh at his expense. They thought it was hilarious that Obert was unable to detain an errant chick, even if that chick was Walter's chick. Not only were they not looking for him, but they weren't inclined to, because the other roosters were sympathetic to Walter's situation. And as far as they were concerned, Obert got what he deserved. As for the roosters on the wall, Chick was completely unaware that they were too busy playing a game of quick straw to notice him. Quick straw is a common game that is especially popular with bored chickens on guard duty. It can be played with straw, but more often than not, it's played with small sticks or twigs. The rules are strange and hard to explain, but it's kind of like a combination of our poker, gin rummy, and maybe a little pinochle thrown in. This was an area of the wall where Chick had not spent a lot of time. He told himself it wasn't because it was close to the tall grass and the possibility of encountering a snake. He just told himself it was because there were other more interesting places to explore. Growing along the stone wall were some small bushes. Chick did his best to try and stay hidden. He darted from one bush to the next. He eventually came to one bush that was bigger than the others. It was shady underneath, for which Chick was grateful. He had gotten very hot from all that darting around. Under the bush was a small puddle of water that had trickled into a depression. Chick took a drink. It was cool and refreshing. It was then that Chick had noticed that the small puddle of water was actually a tiny spring that trickled from the gap between two stones in the wall. Chick peered into the gap and saw that it went farther into the stone wall. He wondered if this was a cave. Chick had never seen a cave before, but he had heard stories that the old hens had told of how caves were where wild and dangerous creatures lived. The difference here was those caves were in the deep brush and not the stone wall of the homestead. Still, Chick thought if this was a cave, there was probably a wild creature inside. He cautiously peered inside, but didn't see anything. The gap between the stones were wide enough for Chick to go in, but too small for any would-be pursuers of the grown-up persuasion. Chick found this was a great selling point, and the fact that if there was a wild creature in there, it was probably not that big. Nonetheless, it was dark, and Chick didn't like the dark. He stood there while his fear and his curiosity debated on what to do. Eventually, curiosity won, and Chick went in to explore. He wondered how big this cave was, and did it go all the way through into the deep brush. As Chick went in, he saw the gap open up into what he thought was a rather cozy area. Once his eyes adjusted to the gloom, Chick saw that it wasn't all that dark. He looked around and decided this was most definitely a cave, and apparently one that didn't seem to have a wild creature in it. And at least for now, of all the hiding places that he had found in the homestead, Chick decided this one was by far the best, and since he was a chick on the run, he'd make this his hideout, so long as no wild creature showed up. He sat down and got comfortable. Chick was very excited about his discovery and wondered if there were other caves on the homestead, and if so, where did they lead? Maybe there was a cave that was a secret passage into the barn or the cabin, or maybe even one that led into the corn crib. Chick thought if he could find such a cave, he would definitely prove his dad was innocent and that Aunt City had been hoarding the corn all along. In all the excitement, Chick forgot that he was hungry until his stomach rumbled again. Chick opened his pouch and poured his corn out into a little pile on the ground. Just as he was getting to take his first peck, he heard someone say, "Well, aren't you going to share?" Startled, Chick jumped up and looked around. There in the back of the cave, there was a pair of large dark eyes. Chick started to panic, thinking this cave did have a wild creature after all. And just as he was going to run for it, the large eyes came forward, and Chick could plainly see they were attached to a field mouse.